Hundreds of thousands of demonstrators have gathered in the Lebanese capital, Beirut, in a protest aimed at bringing down the Western-backed government. The opposition, led by the Shiite Muslim party Hezbollah and including some members of the Christian community, called the demonstrations. They say the current government is unconstitutional. Well, David Foster is in Beirut now. David.
Lauren, thank you very much indeed. There is a real sense here in Lebanon that events have reached critical mass. In the space of 8 days, we've seen two enormous demonstrations. Almost impossible to estimate the real numbers of people here, and official figures are often unreliable, but hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets. One group pro-government, the other one, the people we see here today, very much anti-government. And how to reconcile the different positions of these two camps is the question without violence. It's a question that's almost impossible to answer. On the one hand, you have a prime minister who says what we're seeing here today is the start of an attempted coup. On the other hand, you have those people out on the streets of Beirut at the moment who say the government is illegal. Well, in a moment, we'll be asking Hezbollah where it goes from here. But first, Michael Sullivan reports on the day's events so far.
During the morning, hundreds of thousands poured into Beirut in answer to the opposition party's call for a peaceful, civilized, popular movement meant to put pressure on a government regarded by Hezbollah and its allies as illegitimate, and its prime minister a puppet of the Americans. But the government and its prime minister say that this is the start of an attempted coup backed by Syria, putting democracy in Lebanon in jeopardy. Walid Jumblat, the Druze leader, has questioned the demonstrators' motives, asking why it was that they were so eager to obstruct an international tribunal to prosecute the assassins of anti-Syrian politicians. Why do they persist in defending killers, he asked. Despite the call for a peaceful demonstration, the government deployed the Lebanese army and its military hardware in numbers during the night. The Prime Minister issued a dark warning on television that violence, damage to property or an attempt to create a state within a state would not be tolerated. But Michael Aoun, a Christian leader now on the pro-Syria side, delivered to the crowd a blunt demand for the Prime Minister and his ministers to resign.
Our criticism is directed towards the Prime Minister of Lebanon, who through his decisions has committed many mistakes and therefore should face the consequences. We want someone with more experience, more knowledge, in order to lead the Lebanese people.
The battle of words is intensifying, and many fear that it might slide into yet another armed conflict between the country's multifarious political and religious groups. Beirut has seen much worse than this mass of flag-waving supporters of Hezbollah and its allies gathering in the winter sunshine. Lebanon is a country of fierce political and religious rivalries, riven for years by war. And despite the apparent good nature of the Beirut gathering, the rivalries are bitter. Hezbollah and the other opposition parties, with the support of 40% of Lebanon's members of parliament, have been demanding greater cabinet representation to give them the power of veto of government decisions. Now they believe and hope that they have the government on the run, and that this massive street demonstration could topple it. Michael Sullivan, Al Jazeera.
And as you can hear, the protest still going on, both in the square behind me and in Martyrs Square, where last week's demonstration took place. Other parts of Beirut too, and possibly spreading to other parts of this country. Worth noting that as you look at these live pictures, the orange flags representing the party of Michel Aoun. Most people heeding requests not to bring any other flags other than the Lebanese flag, so that this became a statement of national sovereignty rather than something to do with particular parties. Well, amongst those crowds, Hashem Ahalbara, who's been with the people on the streets all day. Hashem?
They have held their ground over the national unity government, but when they failed to reach an agreement with the government, they decided to take to the streets. They were in the thousands in the Martyrs Square, and here in the place of Riyadh Sulh, a very prominent member of Hezbollah said The 1st of December 2006 was the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. But for those who participated in the rally, they think that was a huge, huge event. Let's talk to this lady. Do you think that Fouad Senoura's government got the message from you today?
Good evening. I guess they have to get the message because all the people from all parts of Lebanon came here to tell them we don't need any more corruption. We want them to leave.
Are you ready to stay here as long as it takes to topple the government, or do you think this is going to be a very long and painful process?
Well, we stayed before on 14th of March and we're going to stay here again if it takes, as long as it takes, we're going to stay here.
Thank you very much indeed. It was an impressive organization by Hezbollah. They have in fact deployed 20,000 marshals here. They have cordoned off all this area for fears of a reprisal or slight incidents that might trigger chaotic scenes here in Beirut. They are saying this is just the beginning of a long process. Some people have started to leave this area, but they're saying we'll come back tomorrow, the day after. We won't leave here until we get a final answer from Fouad Senoura. It's two options. Either they sit together with us for a national unity government, or this is going to be our final say. Back to you, David.
Hashem, thank you very much indeed. Let's talk to Ibrahim Moussaoui, editor of Al-Manar Television, the Hezbollah-backed station here. Your supporters have said they believe the Senoura government could fall within 7 days. How would that be?
Well, I mean, this kind of, you have the hugest crowd in the history of Lebanon. People are rallying, Christians, Muslims from different confessional factions. They are against this government. They deem it as illegitimate, so they wanted to bring down. I believe if there is any reason, any sense in this government, then it should resign. And I believe they have a variety of measures and procedures that they are going to use in a very phased schedule against this government to bring it down. I believe what we have seen one phase and one chapter of the movement, and we will see things that again will happen in the next days.
You're going to block the ministries, I hear?
This is not something that I know about actually. What we heard about the Free Patriotic Movement are going to set tents to blockade and to kind of disable the Grand Sarai. This is what they have.
That's the Prime Minister's residence behind
exactly.
you.
It might be a possibility. I mean, if this government is illegitimate, it shouldn't be allowed to exercise its illegitimate procedures and decisions.
Is this what you meant when you told me earlier you might expect civil disobedience?
Yeah, this is part of it actually. When you talk about illegitimate government, people are not giving their trust or confidence to the authority, to the power, then they have every right to bring it down. This might be one chapter of it.
And what other forms of protest might there be?
You have different things. I mean, the opposition now is not in the position to reveal and to say everything that it has. They are going to go in a very scheduled way, one procedure at one time in order to exert this effective pressure against the government. I don't know all of the details, but I know this is part of it.
Quite telling that Hezbollah, who principally organized this rally, asked a Christian leader to address the crowd. Why was that?
This is not right, actually. This is part of the things that they are saying, that Hezbollah led or organized. You're talking about a wide spectrum of
But it was Sheikh Nasrallah who went on television last night and asked everybody to come out on the streets.
This is partly right. Sayyid Nasrallah came out on the television and asked, but before him, General Aoun came out on the television and said. The Druze's leader, Talal Arslan, came out and talked about it. I mean, many leaders of the opposition came and they called on their followers to come to the street.
But was there a significance in the fact that it was a Christian politician addressing the rally today?
This is one very pretty evidence that this is not a confessional division here. You're talking about political division. This is not Muslims against Christians. This is not Sunnis against Shias or Shias against Sunnis, because the opposition comprised all of the confessions in Lebanon: Sunnis, Druzes, Christians, and Shias.
Do you expect this to escalate in the coming days if Fouad Senoura, as he said up till now, refuses to go?
If he is going to continue to survive in his government, I mean to make this government survive with the American injections, I believe if he's going to continue with his arrogant attitudes, he doesn't want to listen to the street, and I believe this is the hugest crowd in Lebanon's history asking him to come down, that he's illegitimate. One confession came out of the cabinet, it's not illegitimate anymore. I believe he would be putting Lebanon on a way of a very serious escalation.
Ibrahim Moussaoui, thank you very much indeed, the editor of Al-Manar Television, referring there to Fouad Senoura, the Lebanese